The Psychological Scars and the Road to Recovery. In 1978, Holocaust survivor and author Elie Wiesel wrote, "Time does not heal all wounds. There are those that remain painfully open." While many of the survivors of the Holocaust rebuilt their lives, remarrying and starting families in the displaced persons camps following the war and emigrating elsewhere, the scars of the Holocaust did not fade. It is important to note that a large majority of Holocaust survivors bore their ordeal with remarkable strength, working through the losses and suffering of the Holocaust by immersing themselves in their work, their families, and social and political lives, as well as their religion. During the years between 1945 and 1960, the psychological impact of the Holocaust on those that had lived through it, both children and adults, was largely ignored. Survivors of all ages were encouraged to move on with their lives and to avoid discussing what had occurred in Europe during the war. Even in Israel, they were not often believed if they did share their experiences. These reactions increased the silence and even the guilt and shame many survivors felt when they remembered the Holocaust. Many did not share their experiences, even with their own children. Only after the Eichmann trial in 1961 did survivors begin to speak more freely about their Holocaust experiences. The many survivors who testified led others, including those living outside of Israel, to open up about the Holocaust. Children, the second generation born in the years following the Holocaust, began to question their parents about their experiences. Some survivors opted to begin to speak publicly in an attempt to educate others, writing books and speaking to school children. Books, including Elie Wiesel's Night, provided a personal and accessible means of processing experiences and helping others understand what had occurred. For many, the act of sharing their stories, difficult as it may be, provides some level of relief and healing. As the years went on, more survivors required psychological care. Retirement and the quiet years of life, as well as the mental changes that come with age, caused growing challenges for many Holocaust survivors. Work and family no longer provided the distraction from the psychological scars of the Holocaust. Several key characteristics were common among survivors, such as repression of memories, intrusive thoughts, depression, survival guilt, sleep disturbances, anxiety, and a low threshold for stress. It was only in the late 1980s that a specific psychological institute devoted to the care of survivors, AMCHA, was founded in Israel. AMCHA, the National Israeli Center for the Psychosocial Support of Survivors of the Holocaust and the Second Generation, is named after the Yiddish word meaning your people. AMCHA was designed to provide services to all those impacted by the final solution and their family, including anyone who was incarcerated in a concentration camp, forced labor facility, or ghetto. Those who hid through the war years, children who were sent away in Kindertransport, and others. Those who survived the Holocaust as children often bear different psychological scars than adults. Adults who experience the Holocaust while quite young may, many years later, struggle with separation and abandonment, memory loss, identity problems, and other psychological issues. Some of the same strategies are helpful for child survivors. However, others may be unable to remember to discuss their experiences. Outside of Israel, support groups offer survivors of the war an opportunity to discuss and share their experiences. In a more diverse environment, these groups also sometimes include soldiers and even the children and grandchildren of Nazis. Soldiers, particularly those present at the liberation of the camps, often bear psychological scars of their own experiences. Friendships forged among these varying groups with their shared experiences or family experiences of the Holocaust have helped some individuals process their own Holocaust experience and work towards comfort and healing. In the words of one Holocaust survivor, Eliezer Ayalon, who spent his life in Israel following the Holocaust, "I feel that I accomplished what I wanted. My life, my children and grandchildren, I couldn't be happier in any other place. The fact that I survived as a decent man and a believing Jew who can laugh and love and look at the world's bright side is nothing less than magnificent. My whole life has changed, but my life is still a continuing defeat for Hitler and the Nazis who hope to destroy us. The people of Israel live."